Your annual visit
Both
with Tom and myself, it's great to see you. How do you respond to the President of the United States?
Positively, because he also had a very successful meeting with Ursula von der Leyen. She is the new EU Commission President. They agreed that it was a good meeting, that they will continue the dialogue as soon as possible. I've had myself many conversations with Trump on trade. I always found him very pragmatic and very practical. He has his irritations about Europe. We have some issues with the US, but that is not a problem. That's why you have to negotiate. I think we can get a deal done.
I wonder if you're more annoyed with France than you are the United States at the moment, because it's the policies of France that are causing much of the problems. Secretary Mnuchin said the following this week: if people want to just arbitrarily put taxes on our digital companies, we will consider arbitrarily putting taxes on car companies.
Yeah, but that is a discussion about digital tax. I think best will be to deal with the issue of digital tax in the context of the OECD. It can also be part of the talks between the US and Europe. But don't forget, the US is the #1 economy in the world and the most powerful country. But in terms of overall economic size, Europe is bigger. We are 1.5 times the size of the US. So when they deal with China, it's not about first place, it's about second place.
But Prime Minister, you bring up a key point. Montana has the same voice in President Trump as Mississippi. There are many voices of Europe. What is the most efficacious way for Europe to speak to the President of the United States on trade?
Directly and forthright. With Trump, you have to be
Brussels
very clear.
And out of Strasbourg? I mean, who's the voice that's going to sit across the table from the President
That
of
is
the
the
United
President of
States?
the European Commission, because this is a European theme. And we are united in the European Union on trade. We always have. One of the few very successful things we are doing. I mean, we have very many issues in Europe about climate change, about migration. But one of the consistently successful things we are dealing with as a European Union is trade. And we have to work with one voice. We are doing that also with the UK when they are leaving from next week onwards. Where we have to create a new trade deal. So I'm optimistic about it, because we know what is important for Trump. We know what is important for Europe. And we are both pragmatical.
Well, there's some easy things
and the
to
rhetoric
do.
in the run-up is always part of that.
There are some easy things to do. One of them is just look at the tariffs on autos. If you import a car out of the United States into Europe, 10%. If you import a passenger car out of Europe into the United States, the tariff is 2.5%.
Yeah, but
now,
on SUVs, it's 25%.
Trucks are much higher, 25%, which goes back decades.
So on average,
can we address this? Can we just equalise the whole thing?
Well, I discussed that with Trump myself, and on average, it is about 9% from a car coming out of Europe. The 2.5, 25 put together is about 9%, and a car coming out of the US is 10%. So it is already almost the same. This is not a big issue. I think we can deal with this.
As I've asked before this morning, I want you to identify what the new capitalism will be for Europe. The Dutch have led on capitalism for well in excess of 400 years as well. Do you sense, with the solution of Brexit, do you sense with some form of trade agreement with the United States, a less multilateral approach, that there has to be a new capitalism out of Europe, a new attitude?
No, not a new capitalism, but we have to learn from the past. Dutch companies like Shell, Unilever, Philips, Akzo, they always were both successful, internationally oriented companies, but also very much rooted in the local communities in the countries which they were serving. And they still are. I'm still very proud of these companies. Some of the companies recently coming into place have less of a connection to the local communities. Do not fully realize that next to making a nice profit, there's also a societal impact as a company. And the good you can do in terms of making sure that the changes to the environment are not taking place, and the role you can play there. And I believe we should put more emphasis on that.
As John mentions the French and the challenges Mr. Macron has domestically, or the transition of power after the Merkel era in Germany, what part can the Netherlands play to provide a center to Europe, a more coalescing capitalism?
Well, we believe that with the UK leaving, we're one of the countries with the most international outlook, the most trade-oriented, the most free enterprise-oriented countries. We work very closely together with the Scandinavian EU countries, with the Baltic countries, Slovenia, with Ireland, but also with Belgium and Luxembourg within the Benelux. That is a powerful group of countries who all share this outlook on capitalism, on international trade. At the same time, we have a strong bilateral relationship with Germany, with France. I was last week in Italy. We are building a strong relationship with the Italian government, a bilateral relationship within the EU, because this is needed to maintain that outlook on the world with the UK leaving.
We're pushed for time. Let's get the UK leaving into the conversation. You're very pragmatic, in fact, respectful of the US administration, and that's encouraging about ultimately coming to a positive outcome with the United States. Are you equally the same with the UK at the moment?
Well, I have one worry, and that is
that?
the time we have available, because they will leave formally next week, but basically they won't leave at all. They will only leave the political structures. Yep. They will still be part of everything else in the EU till the end of the year. And in the meantime, we have to solve this trade deal. But for this trade deal to be solved, we need to agree on level playing field and all the other issues. It's an awfully short amount of time. So I hope that coming next summer, June, July, that Boris Johnson will at least contemplate extending, if necessary, this transition phase.
At the moment, he's not.
At the moment, he's not. But also here, I would say, let's take this step by step.
So you're just saying it's inconceivable that you can come to the trade agreement?
Not inconceivable, but it's very difficult. So, and then you, and there's still the risk, in the worst case, that you have a cliff edge scenario, like we had experienced last year.
This is a nightmare scenario, because what we're going to end up with at Heathrow is Virgil van Dijk is not going to be able to go through customs like he can now. I mean, let's bring it, the gentleman from Breda Groningen, he's got to get up to Liverpool, and there he is stuck at Heathrow in a new customs line.
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
It's unacceptable.
Right?
He will return to the Netherlands.
For our US audience, can we explain who Virgil van Dijk is?
Well, I know who he is because I've been lectured
the greatest centre-back in football at the moment.
One of the great players in the Dutch team.
Absolutely
and the
fantastic.
reason why we will win the European Championship.
You think you're going to win?
Absolutely. No
really?
Doubt. No doubt.
Couple of injuries. Not worried at all?
Yeah, that's also part of it. And they hopefully will be back in time.
This goes to the... we're going to have to talk about this later on the Dutch Prime Minister's next visit to New York and London.
I just love that we have the Dutch Prime Minister with us and we end up talking about your favourite topic.
I love watching... He's like Aaron Judge of the New York Yankees. He's out of body.
Fantastic. He's something else. Mark Rutte, great to catch up with you once again.
Good to be here.
The Dutch Prime Minister in Davos.
He doesn't wait in line at
the
Heathrow.
World Economic Forum.
Prime Minister does not wait in line.
Well, he goes through that special lane, doesn't he?
When I travel privately, I wait in line.
Goes through that
when I travel through Boris Johnson official capacity, I would be, well, hoovered around. But in a private capacity, I have to wait in the same line as you.